The rain started at exactly 11:47 p.m. Not heavy rain. Not the kind that shook windows or flooded streets. This rain felt quieter, almost gentle. Tiny silver drops drifted slowly from the dark sky and covered the city in a soft, reflective glow. Neon signs shimmered across wet pavement. Streetlights blurred through fog. Cars moved silently through empty midnight streets. And somewhere far above the sleeping city, thunder rolled softly behind thick clouds. Ethan Cole stood alone beneath the awning of a small coffee shop on Mercer Street. His black jacket was slightly wet at the shoulders. A paper coffee cup rested quietly between his hands. Across the street, rain slid down glowing apartment windows in long silver lines. Everything felt calm. Too calm. The coffee shop behind him had almost closed for the night. Only one employee remained inside wiping tables beneath warm yellow lights. Soft jazz music played faintly through old speakers. Ethan checked his phone again. No messages, no calls, no notifications, nothing. He sighed quietly and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Lately, silence had become normal. The city was full of millions of people. Yet somehow, everyone felt far away. The rain became slightly heavier. Tiny drops bounced softly against parked cars lining the street. A bus passed slowly nearby, its glowing windows reflecting across puddles. And then, something strange happened. A woman suddenly stumbled out of the rain near the intersection ahead. She looked terrified. Her soaked coat clung tightly against her body as she hurried toward pedestrians beneath the streetlights. "Please wait." Her voice cracked desperately. But nobody reacted. Not one person turned around. The woman grabbed the passing man's arm. "You know me." The man immediately jerked away in confusion. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Fear spread across the woman's face. "No, no, listen to me." But the man walked away quickly without another word. The woman looked around desperately now. Rain fell harder across the glowing street. Cars passed slowly through fog. and somehow, everyone around her acted like she didn't exist. Ethan frowned slightly beneath the awning. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. The woman's breathing became panicked. She rushed toward another person near the sidewalk. This time an older woman carrying groceries. Please tell me you remember me." The older woman stared blankly. "I think you have the wrong person." The grocery bags shook softly in the rain as she hurried away. The terrified woman stood frozen beneath the streetlight. Rainwater rolled down her face like tears. Then slowly, she looked directly at Ethan. Their eyes met across the street. And for one horrifying second, Ethan saw pure panic inside her expression. Like she was drowning invisibly while the entire world walked past her. The woman opened her mouth slightly, almost like she wanted to say something. But suddenly, lightning flashed softly behind the clouds. The street lights flickered once, and the woman disappeared. Completely. Ethan's heartbeat stopped. The intersection stood empty beneath the rain. No footsteps. No running figure. Nothing. Only silver rain falling through neon light. A cold feeling moved slowly through his chest. The coffee shop door opened softly behind him. "You okay, man?" The employee leaned against the doorway holding a towel. Ethan stared across the street silently. There was a woman. The employee frowned. "What woman?" Ethan pointed toward the intersection. She was right there. Rain continued falling softly outside. The employee glanced around the empty street. "I think you've been standing in the cold too long." Then he smiled politely. "We're closing." The door shut again behind him. Warm jazz music disappeared. Ethan remained motionless beneath the awning. Rain covered the city in soft silver fog. And somewhere deep inside himself, a strange feeling whispered quietly. Something was wrong with the rain. By 1:13 a.m., the city had become almost completely empty. Ethan walked slowly through downtown streets beneath glowing signs and flickering traffic lights. Rainwater soaked the edges of his shoes. Fog drifted softly between tall buildings. But his thoughts remained fixed on the woman from earlier. The fear in her eyes. The way people ignored her. And then, the impossible moment she vanished completely. He stopped near a late-night convenience store glowing blue beneath the rain. Inside, only an old cashier sat watching static flicker across a tiny television. Ethan grabbed a bottle of water from a refrigerator. The cashier barely looked up. Long silence filled the store except for rain tapping softly against the windows. Then finally, Ethan spoke quietly. "Did you see a woman running outside earlier tonight?" The cashier frowned slightly. "What woman?" She looked scared. The cashier shook his head slowly. "Kid." He glanced toward the empty rainy street outside. "Nobody's been out there for an hour. A strange chill crawled across Ethan's arms. He paid silently and left the store. Outside, the rain had become thicker now. The city looked dreamlike beneath fog and neon reflections. As Ethan walked beneath flickering signs, his phone suddenly vibrated inside his pocket. He quickly pulled it out. Unknown number. For a moment, he hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Only rain answered at first. Soft static crackled through the speaker. Then finally, a weak trembling voice whispered, "Please don't forget me." Ethan froze instantly. It was her, the woman from the street. Rain moved softly around him. "Who are you?" The line crackled loudly. Then the woman whispered something that made his blood run cold. "It's happening again." Thunder rolled softly somewhere above the city. Ethan's breathing slowed. "What's happening?" The woman sounded terrified now. "Every time it rains." Static swallowed her voice briefly. "Someone disappears." Rain slid slowly down glowing storefront windows nearby. Ethan tightened his grip on the phone. "What do you mean disappears?" The woman breathed shakily through the speaker. "People forget us." The city lights blurred softly through drifting fog. "They forget our names." Thunder echoed quietly again. Our faces. The line crackled violently. Everything. Ethan's heartbeat pounded harder now. That's impossible. The woman laughed weakly. A broken, exhausted laugh. That's what I said too. Then suddenly, her voice dropped almost to a whisper. And now nobody remembers me. Rain continued endlessly around the city. Cars passed silently through distant intersections. The woman's breathing trembled softly through the speaker. You're the only one who still saw me. Ethan looked around the empty, glowing streets. Fog drifted beneath traffic lights. His chest tightened slowly. Who are you? Silence. Then finally, very softly, my name is Lily. Rain whispered endlessly across the city. And tomorrow morning, her voice nearly disappeared beneath static. You won't remember me either. The phone line went dead. Ethan stood frozen beneath the rain. The screen slowly dimmed in his hand. Unknown number vanished completely from the call history. As if the conversation never happened. A cold wind moved between the buildings. And somewhere far above the city, thunder rolled again through the storm clouds. Then suddenly, all the streetlights around Ethan flickered at once. The rain grew heavier, and for the first time that night, Ethan noticed something horrifying. Every person walking beneath the storm looked strangely empty. Tired, disconnected, like pieces of them had already been erased long ago. The rain continued through the rest of the night. Soft, endless, silver drops sliding down windows across the sleeping city. Ethan barely slept. He sat alone inside his apartment near dawn, staring at the dark screen of his phone while rain tapped softly against the glass behind him. The woman's voice still echoed inside his head. Tomorrow morning, you won't remember me either. Every logical part of his mind wanted to dismiss its stress. Exhaustion. Maybe some strange prank. But deep down, he knew the fear in her voice had been real. And the most terrifying part, the phone call no longer existed. No number, no call log, nothing. as if it had erased itself. Outside, the storm slowly weakened beneath grey morning skies. Fog drifted between apartment buildings. The city looked washed out and strangely empty after the rain. Ethan rubbed his tired eyes and opened his laptop. He typed slowly into the search bar. People disappearing during rainstorm. Thousands of useless results appeared instantly. Flood reports, weather warnings, conspiracy forums. Nothing meaningful. He sighed quietly, then stopped. One article near the bottom caught his attention. Woman missing during overnight storm. 1998. Ethan clicked immediately. A grainy newspaper scan filled the screen. The article described a woman named Claire Holloway who vanished during a heavy thunderstorm downtown. No evidence, no witnesses, no explanation. The article ended strangely. Friends and co-workers claimed they struggled to remember details about the victim shortly after her disappearance. Ethan frowned. That sentence felt wrong. He opened another article, then another, and another. Every single case happened during rainstorms. Every victim vanished overnight. And each report mentioned the same disturbing detail. People slowly forgot him afterward. Not completely at first. Small things disappeared first. Their voices, their habits, their faces, until eventually, it became difficult for anyone to remember they existed at all. A cold feeling spread slowly through Ethan's chest. This wasn't random. The rain was connected somehow. By afternoon, the storm clouds returned. Dark gray skies swallowed the city again. Ethan sat inside the downtown public library surrounded by stacks of old newspaper archives. Soft rain rolled against giant windows overhead. The library felt strangely quiet today, almost sleepy. Only a few people moved silently between shelves beneath warm yellow lights. Ethan flipped carefully through another old newspaper reel. Missing person. Storm. Forgotten. Again. And again. And again. The oldest case he found dated back almost 50 years. A taxi driver vanished during heavy rain in 1974. Then a college student in 1989. A musician in 2003. An entire family in 2011. Always during storms. Always followed by fading memories. Ethan leaned back slowly in his chair. His heartbeat felt heavier now because suddenly, the pattern became horrifyingly clear. The city itself remembered these people less over time. Like the rain erased them gradually from reality. Interesting, isn't it? Ethan froze instantly. A quiet voice had appeared behind him. He turned quickly. An older woman stood near the archive shelves holding several books against her chest. Dark gray coat. Silver hair tied neatly back. Sharp observant eyes. She looked calm. Too calm. You've been reading those files for 3 hours, she said softly. Rain tapped gently against the library windows nearby. Ethan hesitated slightly. You know about this? The woman studied him carefully. Most people stop noticing the pattern. The lights above flickered softly once. But some people remember longer than others. A strange tension moved through Ethan's chest. He stood slowly. Who are you? The woman gave a faint, tired smile. My name is Evelyn. She glanced toward the rainy windows. And if you're researching the storm disappearances. Her expression darkened slightly. Then the rain has already noticed you. Thunder rolled softly outside. Ethan stared at her silently. What does that mean? Evelyn carefully placed her books onto a nearby table. For a moment, she seemed unsure whether to continue. Then finally, she spoke quietly. Once you begin remembering erased people. Rain slid slowly down the giant windows behind her. The rain begins trying to erase you too. The library suddenly felt colder. Ethan lowered his voice. This is insane. Evelyn nodded softly. Yes. The lights flickered again overhead. But it's real. She reached into her coat pocket slowly. Then handed Ethan an old photograph. The edges were worn and faded from age. It showed 5 people standing together beneath umbrellas during heavy rain. all smiling. But something about the image felt wrong immediately. Only 4 faces remained clear. The 5th person's face had faded almost completely into blur. Like reality itself had forgotten them. Ethan looked up slowly. What happened to them? Evelyn stared quietly at the photograph. My brother, Rain whispered against the glass around them. He disappeared 17 years ago during a storm. Her fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the table. At first everyone remembered him. Thunder rolled softly outside, but slowly. Her voice weakened. His face became harder to picture. Ethan looked back at the faded photograph. My parents forgot his birthday first. The library remained silent around them. Then his voice. The rain outside grew slightly heavier. And eventually, Evelyn swallowed quietly. They forgot they ever had a son. A deep coldness settled inside Ethan's chest. Because the pain in her expression wasn't confusion. It was grief. Real grief carried for years completely alone. Evelyn slowly sat across from him. I spent years researching the storms. Warm yellow library lights reflected softly across wet windows. There's always one person during every major rainfall. One person chosen. Ethan frowned. Chosen by what? Evelyn looked toward the dark sky beyond the glass. I don't know. The answer hung heavily between them. Rainwater streamed endlessly across the city outside. Then quietly, Evelyn asked, "Have you spoken to one yet?" Ethan's heartbeat slowed. He thought of Lily immediately. The terrified girl beneath the streetlight. The phone call. The whisper. Please don't forget me. Evelyn noticed his silence instantly. You did. Ethan nodded slowly. She said people were forgetting her. Evelyn's face became pale. Then she doesn't have much time left. Thunder echoed softly across downtown. Ethan leaned forward. What happens to them? Long silence filled the table. Then Evelyn answered quietly, "No one knows." Rain rolled softly against the windows nearby. Because eventually, Her eyes drifted toward the faded photograph again. Even the erased people disappear from memory completely. The words settled heavily between them. Then suddenly, a loud crash echoed somewhere deeper inside the library. Both of them turned instantly. One of the tall archive shelves had collapsed onto the floor. Books scattered everywhere. Several nearby people looked up in confusion, but Ethan's eyes locked onto something else. A young man stood frozen near the fallen shelf, completely soaked from rain, his expression terrified, and nobody around him seemed to notice he was there. The young man looked directly at Ethan, then whispered silently through trembling lips. "It's starting again." Lightning flashed outside the library windows. The lights flickered violently overhead, and for one horrifying moment, the young man's face began fading slightly beneath the storm-darkened room. Like reality itself was struggling to remember him. Lightning flashed across the library windows. For one brief second, the entire room turned white. Then darkness returned beneath flickering yellow lights. Rain hammered softly against the giant glass walls outside, and near the collapsed archive shelf, the soaked young man stood trembling. Nobody else seemed to notice him. Not the librarian, not the students nearby, not even the security guard slowly walking toward the fallen books. It was like the young man existed outside everyone else's awareness. But Ethan saw him clearly. And the moment their eyes met, fear moved sharply through Ethan's chest. Because the young man's face looked unstable somehow. Not blurry exactly. More like reality itself was struggling to hold him together. Tiny details kept fading. The color of his jacket, the shape of his hair, even the sound of his breathing felt distant beneath the storm. Evelyn stood immediately from the table, her expression pale. "He's almost gone." The young man backed away slowly, terrified. "No, Rainwater dripped softly from his sleeves onto the library floor. Please don't let it happen again. The security guard finally reached the fallen shelf nearby. But he walked directly past the young man without reacting, like he couldn't even see him. The young man's breathing became panicked. It's getting worse. Ethan stepped toward him carefully. What's your name? The young man froze, like nobody had asked him that in a very long time. Then quietly whispered, Daniel. The library lights flickered violently overhead, and suddenly, Daniel's left arm faded slightly transparent for half a second. Ethan stumbled back instinctively. Daniel looked down in horror. Oh God! Evelyn grabbed Ethan's arm immediately. We need to leave. Thunder rolled deeply across the city. Rain intensified against the windows. Daniel looked toward them desperately. She's coming. Ethan frowned. Who? Daniel's terrified eyes lifted slowly toward the storm outside. The rain. The city had grown darker by evening. Storm clouds swallowed almost all remaining daylight. Rain poured endlessly through downtown streets beneath glowing neon signs and blurred headlights. Ethan, Evelyn, and Daniel moved quickly through the crowded sidewalks. Or at least, Ethan and Evelyn did. People walked around Daniel strangely, avoiding him without realizing it. Never making eye contact, never reacting when he brushed past them. Like some invisible part of the world had already stopped recognizing him as human. Daniel kept his hood low as rain soaked the streets around them. His breathing remained uneven. You shouldn't have seen me, he whispered quietly. Cars hissed softly across wet pavement nearby. Ethan glanced toward him. What do you mean? Daniel swallowed hard. Once people noticed the erased, lightning flashed somewhere above the skyline. The rain notices them too. The words echoed coldly through Ethan's mind. Exactly what Evelyn had warned earlier. Rainwater rolled through storm drains beside the sidewalks. Fog drifted between towering buildings. The city no longer felt normal tonight. It felt watched. Evelyn led both of them down a narrow alley glowing faintly blue beneath flickering signs. At the end stood an old bookstore hidden beneath rusted fire escapes. Most of the windows were covered by curtains. Only one warm light remained visible inside. Evelyn unlocked the door quickly. "Hurry!" The three of them stepped inside. The door shut heavily behind them. Instantly, the sound of the storm softened. The bookstore smelled of old paper, dust, and coffee. Tall shelves filled every corner beneath dim amber lights. Rain tapped softly against the covered windows. Daniel collapsed weakly into a nearby chair. His hands shook visibly. Now Ethan finally noticed something horrifying. Daniel's fingertips were fading, not invisible completely, just thinning, like smoke dissolving slowly into air. Ethan stared silently. Daniel noticed immediately. "Yeah." A weak laugh escaped him. That part usually starts first. The room became painfully quiet. Evelyn moved toward the back of the store and returned carrying an old map of the city. She spread it across a wooden table beneath warm light. Rain continued endlessly outside. Ethan stepped closer. The map was covered in handwritten notes. Circles, dates, storm records, missing person locations. Entire sections of downtown had been marked repeatedly across decades. Daniel looked toward the map weakly. "You tracked all of them." Evelyn nodded softly. "For 17 years. Thunder rolled quietly above the city." Ethan pointed toward several circles clustered near the riverfront. "What's there?" Evelyn hesitated briefly, then answered quietly, "That's where the erased gather." A chill moved through the room. Daniel lowered his eyes immediately. They remember each other there. Rainwater slid down the bookstore windows. Ethan frowned. "You mean there are more people like you?" Daniel gave a faint, exhausted nod. "Hundreds." The answer hit harder than expected. Hundreds of forgotten people moving invisibly through the city. People erased from memory during storms. People no longer connected to the world around them. Evelyn looked toward the rain-covered windows thoughtfully. The biggest storms create the most disappearances. Lightning flashed outside again, and suddenly, all the lights inside the bookstore dimmed briefly. Daniel's face tightened in fear. It's getting closer. Ethan stared at him. What is? Long silence filled the room. Then Daniel answered softly, "No one's ever seen it directly. The storm outside groaned deeply around the buildings. But sometimes, his fading fingers trembled against the table. You can feel it moving through the rain. A deep coldness settled inside Ethan's chest. The bookstore lights flickered again. Then suddenly, every radio inside the store turned on at once. Static exploded through the room. Evelyn froze instantly. Daniel stood abruptly from the chair, terrified. The static slowly shifted into distorted voices. Whispers. Hundreds of whispers layered together beneath the storm. Ethan's heartbeat pounded harder. Then through the static, one sentence became clear. "Remember us." The lights shut off instantly. Darkness swallowed the bookstore. Only lightning illuminated the room. Now rain crashed violently outside. Daniel backed away from the windows. "They found us." Evelyn grabbed a flashlight quickly. Her expression tense for the first time. "We have to move." Thunder shook the building softly. Ethan's pulse raced. "Move where?" Evelyn looked toward the old city map, then pointed toward a dark section beneath downtown. Old underground subway tunnels abandoned decades ago. The forgotten stay beneath the city during major storms. Rainwater hammered against the bookstore windows. Now the whispers returned faintly through the radios. "Remember, remember." Daniel's body flickered slightly again. Like weak television static, Evelyn grabbed her coat. "If we don't reach the tunnels before midnight." Her voice lowered quietly. Daniel disappears completely. The room became still. Outside, The storm intensified across the city. Flooded streets reflected neon lights beneath endless rain. And somewhere hidden inside the darkness, something moved invisibly through the storm, searching for people the world was beginning to forget. By 11:42 p.m., the streets looked almost abandoned. Rain poured across downtown in silver sheets. Subway entrances flooded. Traffic lights blinked weakly through heavy fog. Ethan followed Evelyn and Daniel beneath an overpass near the riverfront. Water dripped constantly from concrete above. The city sounded distant, now muted beneath the storm. Daniel walked slower with every block. His outline occasionally flickered faintly beneath the rain. Like reality itself was struggling to hold on to him. Finally, Evelyn stopped beside a rusted maintenance door hidden beneath graffiti-covered walls. She pulled an old key from her pocket. Thunder rolled deeply overhead. Rainwater streamed through gutters nearby. The metal door groaned open slowly. Darkness waited beneath the city. Cold air drifted upward from below. Daniel stared down the staircase quietly. They're waiting. Ethan looked toward the darkness uneasily. For us. Daniel nodded slowly. For everyone the rain erased. The metal staircase descended deep beneath the city. Each step echoed softly through the darkness below. Rainwater dripped from pipes overhead. Cold air moved upward through the underground tunnel, carrying the smell of rust, wet concrete, and something older. Something forgotten. Ethan followed carefully behind Evelyn and Daniel. The maintenance door closed heavily above them, and instantly, the sounds of the city disappeared. No traffic, no voices, only distant thunder vibrating softly through the underground walls. Daniel moved slowly ahead using the flashlight from Evelyn. His outline flickered occasionally in the darkness, like weak signal interference. Ethan tried not to stare at it, but every time Daniel faded slightly, fear twisted deeper inside his chest. The tunnel stretched endlessly beneath flickering emergency lights. Old subway tracks disappeared into darkness ahead. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling into shallow puddles. How long have people been hiding down here? Ethan asked quietly. His voice echoed strangely through the tunnel. Evelyn walked beside him calmly. Longer than anyone remembers. The answer felt heavier than expected. Rain thundered faintly somewhere above the city. Daniel slowed near an old station platform swallowed by darkness and fog. Ancient advertisements still clung to cracked walls. Most had faded beyond recognition. A broken clock hung frozen above the tracks. 11:47 p.m., the exact time the rain had started. Ethan noticed immediately. Why is the clock stopped? Daniel looked toward it silently. That's when the first forgetting begins. Coldness spread slowly through Ethan's arms. The station lights flickered softly overhead. And suddenly, shadows began moving deeper within the platform. Not dangerous, just quiet, watching. One by one, people slowly emerged from the darkness. Men, women, children, all soaked from rain, all strangely pale beneath dim underground lights. And every single face carried the same expression. Loneliness. Not ordinary loneliness. The kind created when the world itself no longer remembers you existed. Nobody spoke at first. They simply stared quietly at Ethan, like they were trying to understand why someone from the surface could still see them. Daniel stepped forward weakly. He remembers. Whispers moved softly through the underground station. A woman holding an umbrella looked toward Ethan carefully. That means the storm touched him. An older man sitting near the tracks shook his head slowly. No one remembers for long. The station fell silent again. Ethan looked around carefully. Blankets covered old benches. Lanterns glowed warmly beside broken walls. People had built small shelters from forgotten pieces of the underground world. A hidden city beneath the real one. A city filled with erased people. Evelyn walked toward a small fire burning safely inside an old metal drum. Several people nodded respectfully as she approached. "You've been here before," Ethan whispered. Evelyn stared quietly into the flames. "For years." Rain echoed faintly above the underground ceiling. Daniel collapsed weakly onto a nearby bench. His hands looked more transparent now. The woman with the umbrella stepped toward him quickly. "He's fading too fast." Fear spread through Ethan instantly. What happens when they disappear completely? Nobody answered. That silence terrified him more than any explanation could have. The underground station lights flickered again. Then suddenly, a little girl slowly approached Ethan from the darkness. Maybe 8 years old. She wore a yellow raincoat covered in tiny water droplets. Her large, tired eyes studied him carefully. "You still remember your mother's face?" The question caught Ethan off guard. "What?" The little girl tilted her head slightly. Most people forget small things first. The underground station remained silent around them. Ethan frowned slowly. "I remember her." But even as he said it, something strange happened. For one horrifying second, he struggled to picture her smile clearly. His chest tightened immediately. The little girl noticed. It already started. A deep coldness spread through Ethan's stomach. No, that wasn't possible. He closed his eyes quickly, trying harder to remember. And finally, the image returned. But weaker somehow. Farther away. The little girl stepped back softly. The rain eats memories slowly. Thunder echoed faintly through the tunnels. Ethan looked around the underground station again. Now he noticed something even more disturbing. Everyone here carried objects beside them. Photographs, letters, old watches, cassette tapes, small pieces of their lives. Like they were desperately trying to preserve proof they once existed. The older man near the tracks noticed Ethan staring. We keep reminders. He lifted a faded photograph carefully. Otherwise, eventually, his tired eyes lowered toward the image. We forget ourselves too. The station became painfully quiet. Only distant rain echoed above them. Daniel's breathing worsened suddenly. The woman beside him looked frightened now. He won't survive another storm cycle. Ethan stepped closer immediately. What can we do? Daniel looked up weakly. Dark circles surrounded his exhausted eyes. There's one place. The underground lights buzzed softly overhead. Evelyn's expression changed instantly. No. Daniel forced himself upright slowly. It's the only way. The little girl in the yellow raincoat backed away nervously. Several people nearby lowered their eyes. Fear moved quietly through the station. Ethan frowned. What place? Long silence filled the underground world. Then finally, Evelyn answered softly. The memory room. Rain rumbled heavily somewhere above the city. Ethan waited, but nobody continued. Finally he asked quietly, "What is that?" Daniel swallowed slowly. A place beneath the tunnels. His fading fingers trembled weakly. Some people believe the rain stores memories there. The air suddenly felt colder. Evelyn stepped toward Ethan quickly. We don't even know if it's real. The older man near the tracks spoke quietly without looking up. It's real. Everyone turned toward him. His tired eyes remained fixed on the photograph in his hands. My wife went there once. The fire crackled softly nearby. She remembered our daughter again for one night. The station fell silent. Then he whispered, "Before the rain took her too." Thunder rolled deeply above the city. Daniel stood shakily now. We don't have time. His body flickered visibly again. Ethan stared in horror as parts of Daniel's jacket briefly disappeared completely before returning. Like weak signal interference. The little girl clutched her yellow raincoat tighter. The storm's getting stronger. Evelyn looked toward the dark subway tunnel beyond the station. Fear hidden behind her calm expression. Finally, she sighed quietly. If we go there. Rain echoed heavily above the underground world. There may be no way back. Daniel gave a weak, exhausted smile. There's no way back for me anyway. The sentence hit harder than Ethan expected. Because suddenly, he realized Daniel already understood his fate. The rain had nearly erased him completely. And somehow, the underground station felt less like shelter, now more like a waiting room. A final place forgotten people gathered before disappearing forever. The lights flickered violently overhead again. Then, for the first time, Ethan heard it, a sound moving through the tunnels. Soft, distant, almost like whispering rain. But beneath it, thousands of voices layered together, calling softly through the darkness. The erased people around the station froze instantly. Fear spread across every face. The older man whispered quietly. It found the tunnels. The whispering sound grew closer, flowing through underground tracks like water, like something alive moving beneath the city. Daniel looked toward Ethan urgently. We need to leave now. Evelyn grabbed the flashlight tightly. The firelight trembled softly across frightened faces. And somewhere deep within the endless underground darkness, something moved slowly toward them through the sound of rain. The whispering sound followed them through the tunnels. Soft, endless, like rain speaking through thousands of distant voices. Ethan walked quickly beside Evelyn while Daniel struggled ahead beneath flickering emergency lights. The underground tracks curved deeper beneath the city, farther than normal subway systems should have reached. The air grew colder with every step, and somehow, the darkness ahead felt alive. Water dripped constantly from rusted pipes overhead. Tiny puddles reflected trembling flashlight beams across cracked concrete walls. Behind them, the whispering storm slowly moved closer. The erased people from the station had sealed the heavy metal doors after they left. But Ethan still felt the presence moving through the underground world. Searching, remembering, hunting. Daniel stumbled suddenly. Ethan caught him before he collapsed onto the tracks. His body looked worse now, parts of his sleeves flickered transparent beneath the flashlight. Even his voice sounded distant, like hearing someone speak through weak radio static. "We're close." Thunder vibrated faintly above the city, though now it sounded impossibly far away. Evelyn slowed near a narrow tunnel branching away from the tracks. Old symbols covered the walls here. Hundreds of names scratched into rusted metal. Thousands maybe. Some faded completely. Others looked freshly carved. Ethan stared carefully. These are people who disappeared. Evelyn nodded softly. The forgotten leave the names here before they vanish. Rain whispered faintly somewhere deep underground. Daniel touched several carved names gently with trembling fingers. "My brother's name used to be here." Ethan looked toward him. What happened to it? Daniel lowered his eyes. It disappeared. A deep silence filled the tunnel. The flashlight beam drifted across empty rusted walls. Ethan suddenly realized something horrifying. Even memories could vanish here. Not just people. The tunnel narrowed farther ahead until finally, they reached an enormous metal door hidden beneath the city. It looked ancient, thick black iron covered in water stains and rust. Strange circular symbols spread across its surface, and from behind it came the sound of rainfall. Not normal rain, infinite rain. Evelyn stopped walking. Fear crossed her face immediately. We shouldn't go farther. Daniel turned weakly toward her. If we stop now. His outline flickered violently for half a second. I disappear. Silence. Rain echoed softly behind the door. Ethan stepped closer slowly. The metal felt freezing cold beneath his fingertips. What exactly is this place? Nobody answered immediately. Then Evelyn whispered quietly, "Some people believe this is where forgotten memories go." Thunder rumbled faintly beneath the earth itself. Daniel leaned weakly against the wall. "My mother once told me." His fading eyes lifted slowly toward the door. The rain doesn't erase people. The whispering storm behind them grew slightly louder now. It collects them. Coldness spread sharply through Ethan's chest. Evelyn unlocked several heavy chains wrapped around the ancient door. Each metallic sound echoed deeply through the tunnel. The underground air became colder. Almost impossible cold finally. The final lock clicked open. And slowly, the massive door creaked inward. Warm golden light spilled gently into the dark tunnel. Ethan froze instantly, because behind the door was impossible. The memory room stretched endlessly beneath the city like another world hidden underground. Soft rain fell gently from a dark ceiling impossibly high above. Golden lanterns floated silently through the mist. Thousands of photographs drifted slowly through the air like falling leaves. Voices whispered softly everywhere. Laughter, conversations, names, memories, entire lives floating endlessly inside glowing rain. Ethan stepped inside carefully. The floor beneath him reflected warm golden light like shallow water. The room felt peaceful, sad, beautiful, and deeply wrong. Daniel stared upward with exhausted tears in his eyes. They're all here. Photographs drifted past Ethan slowly. Birthday parties, families, weddings, children laughing beneath sunlight, forgotten moments suspended forever within glowing rain. Then Ethan noticed something terrifying. Some photographs were dissolving, slowly fading into blank white emptiness. as if the memories inside them were dying forever. "What happens when they disappear completely?" he whispered. Evelyn's voice trembled softly behind him. "No one remembers them anymore." The whispering storm outside the memory room groaned faintly through distant tunnels. But inside, everything felt strangely calm, almost sacred. Daniel walked slowly deeper into the glowing rain. Tiny memories drifted around him. Ethan followed carefully. And then, he saw her. Lily, the woman from the street. She stood quietly beside a glowing lantern beneath endless rain. Her face looked softer now, more transparent somehow. But she smiled faintly when she saw Ethan. "You remembered." Relief spread through Ethan immediately. "You're real." Lily laughed weakly. "For now." Golden rain reflected softly in her tired eyes. Ethan stepped closer. "Can this place stop it?" Lily looked around the endless room sadly. "This place only preserves what the rain already took." Photographs floated silently above them. Entire forgotten lives trapped beneath glowing storms. Ethan's chest tightened slowly. "Why is this happening?" Lily stared upward toward the falling golden rain. And for the first time, someone finally answered. Because people wanted to forget. The memory room became silent around them. Lily's voice softened. "The rain began a long time ago." Golden reflections shimmered across the water-like floor. Every lonely person. Her eyes drifted across floating photographs. Every forgotten person. Rain whispered endlessly above them. Every abandoned person the world stopped noticing. Her expression darkened quietly. The storm collected them. Ethan's heartbeat slowed. The realization felt horrifying. The rain wasn't random. It fed on forgotten people, on loneliness, on abandonment, on lives the world slowly ignored. And now, it had become something alive, something enormous. The floating lanterns dimmed slightly overhead. Lily suddenly looked frightened. "It knows you're here now." The whispering storm outside the room grew louder instantly. Voices layered together beneath distant thunder. Evelyn stepped backward nervously. We need to leave. But Daniel remained motionless beneath the golden rain. His body no longer flickered. For the first time since Ethan met him, he looked stable, almost peaceful. Tiny memories drifted around him softly. A woman's laughter, music, birthday candles, a child's voice calling his name. Daniel closed his eyes quietly. It remembers me. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes immediately. Daniel. But Daniel smiled weakly. I forgot my sister's face. Golden rain fell softly around him. And now I can see her again. The memory room glowed warmly around them. Then suddenly, every floating lantern flickered violently. The whispering storm exploded through the tunnels outside. Thousands of voices screamed together beneath crashing thunder. The water-like floor trembled. Lily's terrified eyes lifted upward. It's coming. The endless rain above the memory room darkened instantly. Golden light faded beneath spreading shadows. And then, far above them inside the impossible storm, something enormous moved slowly through the darkness. Not human, not visible completely. Only shifting outlines hidden within endless rain. Watching them, the entire memory room shook violently. Photographs spiraled through the air. Lanterns shattered one by one. The whispering voices became deafening. And deep within the storm, a massive shape slowly opened countless glowing eyes. Cloud with rain candles sleeping. The storm opened its eyes above the memory room. Thousands of glowing shapes shifted inside endless darkness. The ceiling of rain twisted violently overhead. Lanterns shattered across the flooded floor. Floating photographs spiraled wildly through the air like dying birds. And beneath the collapsing golden storm, everyone froze. Ethan couldn't breathe, because now he understood something terrible. The rain was alive, not just weather, not some curse. A living thing created from forgotten memories, loneliness, grief, and abandoned lives. An endless storm born from people the world stopped remembering. The enormous shape above them moved slowly within the darkness. Never fully visible, only fragments. Eyes opening within rain, hands made from flowing shadows. Whispers layered together into one endless voice. And when it spoke, the entire memory room trembled. You remember too much. The sound wasn't loud. It was soft, almost gentle, but it echoed directly inside Ethan's mind. Around him, the glowing photographs began fading faster. Faces disappearing, names dissolving, entire lives turning blank white. Lily stepped backward slowly beneath the storm. Fear filled her fading expression. It's trying to erase everything. Daniel collapsed suddenly onto one knee. His body flickered violently again. The memory room had started destabilizing. The golden rain overhead darkened almost completely. Now only small pieces of warm light remained floating through the shadows. Evelyn grabbed Ethan's arm tightly. "We need to leave now." But Ethan couldn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the storm above them. Something deep inside him whispered one impossible truth. The rain didn't hate people. It was lonely. The realization struck him suddenly and painfully. Every forgotten memory, every abandoned person, every lonely soul erased by time. The storm had collected them because nobody else would. The storm remembered what humanity abandoned. And over decades, it became something enormous. Something broken. Something alive. The glowing eyes above the memory room shifted slowly toward Ethan again. The world forgets everything. The voices echoed endlessly around the collapsing room. so we remember. The water beneath Ethan's feet trembled softly. And suddenly, memories exploded around him. Not his memories. Other people's memories. A father hugging his daughter goodbye during rain. A lonely woman crying silently inside a taxi at night. A boy sitting alone beneath flickering subway lights. Thousands of forgotten moments flooded through Ethan's mind at once. So much loneliness. So much silence. So many people nobody remembered anymore. Tears filled Ethan's eyes unexpectedly. Because beneath the horror, the storm carried unimaginable sadness. Lily looked toward him desperately. Ethan. The giant shape above them moved again. The glowing eyes narrowed slowly. And suddenly, the storm began pulling memories directly from him. Ethan staggered backward violently. Pain exploded through his head. His childhood bedroom. His mother's face. His first birthday. Names. Voices. Everything started slipping away like water through his fingers. No. He grabbed his head desperately. Rain poured harder inside the memory room. The storm whispered softly around him. Let go. Ethan fell onto one knee. His own memories blurred rapidly now, the color of his apartment walls. The sound of music he loved. Even why he came here. It all began dissolving. Evelyn rushed toward him immediately. Stay awake. Her voice sounded distant already. Like hearing someone underwater. Daniel grabbed Ethan's shoulder weakly. Fight it. But Ethan could barely focus anymore. Faces around him blurred strangely. Even Lily's appearance flickered uncertainly now, the storm was erasing him. Just like everyone else. And somewhere deep inside the collapsing memory room, Ethan realized the final horrifying truth. This was how people disappeared forever. Not violently, not suddenly, slowly, quietly, until nobody remembered they had ever existed. The storm lowered itself closer now, its endless body made from rain and forgotten shadows. The glowing eyes surrounded Ethan from every direction. You will rest here too. The voices sounded almost comforting, almost peaceful. like sleep, and for one terrifying second, Ethan wanted to surrender, to stop fighting, to let himself dissolve quietly into the rain forever. Then, a tiny memory surfaced suddenly. Warm sunlight, laughter, a woman kneeling beside him when he was a child. His mother. Her voice echoed softly through the storm. Lonely people disappear when nobody sees them. The memory burned brightly inside Ethan's mind. And suddenly, he understood. The storm only erased forgotten people. People abandoned by the world. People unseen. But memories stayed alive when someone chose to remember. Ethan slowly stood beneath the storm. Rain poured endlessly around him. The glowing eyes watched carefully. And quietly, Ethan spoke. I remember them. The storm paused. The collapsing memory room became still. Ethan looked toward Lily. Toward Daniel. Toward the endless floating photographs around them. I remember all of them. Warm golden light flickered softly somewhere deep within the darkness. The storm shifted uneasily overhead. Because for the first time in decades, someone refused to forget. The glowing photographs stopped fading. Lanterns slowly reignited one by one. Tiny pieces of warm light spread gently through the endless rain. The storm roared softly now, not angry. Afraid, Ethan stepped forward through the water-like floor. You don't have to keep them trapped anymore. The giant shape twisted violently through darkness. The world abandons them. Its voice shook the memory room. The world always forgets. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. Because the storm wasn't wrong. People forgot each other every day. Lonely people vanished emotionally long before they disappeared physically. But still, Ethan whispered quietly, someone can choose to remember. The golden light spread farther through the room. Lily's fading outline stabilized slightly. Daniel's flickering slowed. And around them, thousands of floating memories glowed softly again. The storm trembled overhead. The countless eyes dimmed slowly one by one. And then, for the first time, Ethan heard something beneath the storm's endless whispers. Crying. The storm itself was crying. Rain fell gently now instead of violently. The darkness above the memory room slowly softened. And quietly, the enormous shape began dissolving into mist. Not destroyed, not dead, just tired. The voices surrounding the room weakened softly. Remember them. The final whisper echoed through the glowing rain. Then slowly, the storm disappeared. Silence filled the memory room. Warm golden rain drifted peacefully from above once more. Lanterns floated gently through the mist, and across the endless room, forgotten photographs glowed softly like stars. Ethan stood motionless beneath the calm rain. Breathing hard, Lily approached quietly beside him. Her eyes filled with tears. "You changed it." Ethan looked upward toward the peaceful ceiling of rain. "No." He shook his head softly. "We just listened." The memory room glowed warmly around them. And far above the underground world, the storm outside the city finally began ending. By sunrise, the rain had stopped. Soft golden light spread slowly across wet city streets. Fog drifted peacefully between buildings. Cars moved quietly through puddles reflecting the morning sky. The world felt calm again. Almost normal. Ethan stood alone near Mercer Street holding a warm coffee cup between his hands. People walked past him beneath glowing sunrise reflections. Nobody noticed anything strange. Nobody remembered the storm beneath the city. But Ethan remembered. He always would. A soft breeze moved through the quiet. He always would. A soft breeze moved through the quiet street. Then, for one brief moment, he saw Lily standing across the intersection beneath fading morning fog. She smiled gently, peacefully, then disappeared into sunlight, not erased, free. Ethan looked upward toward the clearing sky. The storm clouds were gone now. Only soft golden light remained, and somewhere beneath the city, thousands of forgotten memories still glowed quietly in the rain, waiting for someone to remember them again.